Well, several weeks ago, the whole world said that the American government was destabilized by Matt Gaetz, who lopped the political head off of Kevin McCarthy's shoulders. And Patrick, today we have a brand new Speaker of the House. Matt Gaetz' victory is complete.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gaetz has been taking big-time arrows, big-time heat. He's got a lot of grassroots support, but you take out the head of the snake or you cut it off, it's going to be they're gonna wail and gnash teeth and scream and everything else at you. But yeah, you got this guy Mike Johnson from Louisiana, certainly more conservative. Major victory for Gaetz and the grassroots, something that's never been done in history. Taking out a sitting speaker, replacing him with someone far more conservative. Big time win. We're proud that Congressman Gaetz is our lead sponsor of Abolish the ATF and National Stand Your Ground Act. On to the next speaker and on with the next fight, man.
Let me ask you a few questions. You worked in D.C. for, far too long. Some would say. Maybe you don't like that. You worked in D.C. for a long time. You know how the game is played there. Most of the entities that were screaming about Matt Gaetz for what he did are the PACs who had invested tens of millions, hundreds of millions, perhaps, of money to make McCarthy their boy. They're now out in the cold. How does that process work if you run some great big PAC or corporation that has a lobbyist on K Street?
Yeah, I think you've probably seen a lot of scrambling over the last number of weeks. Not probably, definitely. Kevin McCarthy's top lobbyist was a guy named Jeff Miller, who's back in the fray again. I read the other day that he's lobbying maybe on a volunteer basis, supposedly for on the Israel money that they're trying to get. But yeah, it shakes the whole thing up. There's no doubt about it. And that's a phrase that Gaetz used when they asked him in the tunnels. I saw a video of him the other day. They said, "What are you getting out of this?" He said, "We're shaking up Washington." Yes. And it's not easy and it's not simple. And we see it at the state level everywhere we operate, Aaron. Anything worth doing is just, it's going to be a big fight. And if you're not willing to be in that fight, then don't drain the swamp and do all this. Like, you have to be willing to fight. There's too much on the line these days for this country. Washington is shaken up. The PACs are pissed off. The lobbyists are pissed off. Go jump in a lake, man. That's all I got to say.
Well, I think if you look at Matt Gaetz's time in office and all he's said publicly, and he's made it very clear, I am not interested in being here just for the sake of being here. I don't need this job. The guy does not need this title to find his self-worth. And so you look back at the previous Republican speakers that we've had over the last chunk of time. We got Paul Ryan, you got these John Boehners, and Kevin McCarthy was the same as Paul Ryan, John Boehner said, same guy, different suit. And Gaetz made it clear, I'm not going to sit back and watch the country go into the gutter with even though we have GOP control, and do nothing. So, I've heard this a lot over the last couple of weeks, Patrick. People say, well, he was like a dog chasing a car and he had no plan for if he was victorious. I don't agree with it. I'm curious, what do you think about that?
Yeah, $35 trillion in debt, no end in sight. Everything is just pretty much on cruise control in Washington, one war after the next. It's like, shake the place up, man. Yeah. And we know this from our 15, 20 years in politics. It's like, you can only judge these politicians by the actions that they take. And the same goes for the speaker, and the same thing goes for Matt Gaetz or anybody else. And everybody has an opinion. But at the end of the day, when you stick your neck out there, one of 8, and all your Republican colleagues are yelling and screaming at you, and I think we have a clip of that in a minute.
Yeah.
Like, that shows you don't care about necessarily your career. You can take, he just wants to be on camera or whatever, but it's like, that dude put himself on the line, and the other people who voted with him did as well. And Washington needs to be shaken up. A lot of people want a Republican to win, and so do I in 2024, but nothing's going to change unless people like Gaetz are in there just sticking their necks out and fighting. Why would you saddle up to these people, McCarthy and this and that? Why would you do that? It's a waste of time, in my opinion.
Well, I think I'd go even, I guess, beyond. So we got Mike Johnson. So I'm going to ask you about Mike Johnson here in a moment. But Mike Johnson, by all we can see, very conservative guy, social conservative, good guy, could be a great speaker. We'll find out. Who knows? But my point, or my contention here, is that it wouldn't matter if we got Kevin 2.0. In other words, if we didn't get a better Speaker of the House, in my mind, what Gaetz did was still correct, because he showed all of us how we can take action, especially if you're a congressman in D.C. right now, and drain that swamp. He cut McCarthy's political head off. And even if he was replaced with somebody who was a notch to the left of McCarthy, it still showed Kevin, it showed the PACs, it showed the swamp that there is a way for us to help defend our country, defend our freedom. And he did it. And in this case, the way it sounds, we're getting even better and much better, perhaps. What do you know about Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, two things. First, I'll talk about Johnson here in a second, but this is what I was contending 11 months ago when they were pushing Kevin McCarthy. Barely took back the House, okay? Barely took it back. But what, 40, 50, 60% of the Republican Party is grassroots gun owners, MAGA, America First, conservative, whatever, libertarian, whatever the heck you want to call yourself. Like, there have to be scalps taken in Washington, D.C. if anything is ever going to change. And we need representation in there. And we should have done this 11 months ago, and we saw what Kevin McCarthy did for 11 months, right? It was debt ceiling. It was, hey, I'm gonna get rid of the 87,000 IRS aid. It didn't happen.
Tens of billions to Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine, same crap, different day. Mike Johnson, I believe you're going to see a change. You said it. Reliable social conservative, pretty good voting record, far more conservative than McCarthy. I don't know anybody who would really want that position, to be honest with you, but it's going to be our job as grassroots Second Amendment activists. We have 15, 17 state groups across the country. We have our national organization, the American Firearms Association. It's going to be our job, if we care about the Second Amendment, which we do passionately, and everybody who watches this do, is keep the heat on people like Johnson, keep the heat on other congressmen, promote people like Gaetz, as long as they're doing the right thing, and other people who want to support our Second Amendment rights and push legislation that's never been pushed before. And keep it in the ear of people like Johnson, so that if a Republican does take over in 24 potentially, or 25, we got to start really draining that swamp. That's the only hope we have, right? And so I think you could see an upgrade with Johnson. I'm reluctant to praise these people because they'll always let you down eventually. But to wrap that up, I certainly think an upgrade over Kevin McCarthy. Absolutely.
And we're only here because of what Matt Gaetz did, the fire he took, the flame he walked through, the arrows he got in the chest, got in the back. This guy took these hits for us. Now we have a chance at possibly a much better Speaker of the House. I have a short clip here, Patrick, from the big day when he was taking Kevin out. I'm going to hit play here just in 1 second.
When it comes to how those raise money, I take no lecture on asking patriotic Americans to weigh in and contribute to this fight from those who would grovel and bend knee for the lobbyists and special interests who own our leadership, who have, boo all you want, who have hollowed out this town and have borrowed against the future of our future generations. I'll be happy to fund my political operation through the work of hardworking Americans, $10 and $20 and $30 at a time, and you all keep showing up at the lobbyist fundraisers and see how that goes for you. I reserve.
Boo all you want.
Yeah, it's funny, and I'll tell our members out there of all of our groups, but we have a PAC, the American Firearms Association PAC. Yep. We endorse Gaetz. I asked a member of his campaign staff if he would accept a contribution from our PAC. That's what we do. We give money to people who support the issues that we care about. He doesn't take PAC money. Nope. So, I mean, again, you only judge these people by the actions that they take, and that is he doesn't want to be owned by anybody. And, you know.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you watch this video, and I don't care if, I've seen state legislators attack him. I've seen congressmen. I've seen, pundits and even good conservatives who really challenged him and said this was all, for his career, for media exposure. You watch that video and you tell me what would be easier for Matt Gaetz: to sit there in the background like everybody else and just shut up while America burns, or to stand up there and take the entire ire of his whole conference and a bunch of the Democrats, presumably as well, and all the lobbyists, and go head to head with Kevin McCarthy. The only approach that makes sense if your interest is in self-preservation is to do what everybody else does. Nothing. He could have sat back and done that. and he could have been in office for decades, and he might still be, but he took a big risk and a big fight, and we should all of us be thankful for that.
Absolutely. I don't see him losing in his district should he file to run for re-election down there in the panhandle of Florida. It's funny you mentioned self-preservation. I think I was reading one of the news journals or maybe saw a report on TV. I think it was Patrick McHenry, this guy who's been serving as the Speaker pro temp, a quote that came from him out of their closed door conference session they've been meeting in over the last number of weeks. But he said something about, I think after Jordan went down or Emmer went down or something, he said, we got a lot of people's political careers on the line here, like people in this room. And it's just like, we need less of that and more of people, 8 people standing against 214 of your colleagues. Like, that's how you change things. That's what we're looking for in candidates and elected officials across the country, in legislatures and in Washington. We do this because we care and we want this country to last and survive for our kids and grandkids. Maybe that's the motivation of Gaetz. Maybe it's not. I don't care. I see him doing it. We need more of it.
Exactly. And we need that in D.C., but also in all of our state capitals. So make no mistake, the swamp is as smelly and as odious and as green and as thick in your state capital as it is in Congress. And if anything, it's more so. Less media attention, less pressure from outside organizations. We need more of this in D.C., more of this in your state capital. I have a great photograph here, Patrick, of you and our president, Chris, at our recent, I think it was the bill drafting or filing day on Capitol Hill. This is Matt Gaetz and some of our team, lead sponsor on both of our bills, National Stand Your Ground Law, as well as our bill to totally and completely abolish the ATF. Matt Gaetz, definitely a champion. Guys, that's what we have time for right now. Join the fight. As always, guys, go to joinafa.org and get signed up. You guys stay free.